Hey guys, this video is meant to show you how I edit my cosplay selfies in Photoshop for Instagram. I got a few questions about how I do this, so I'm trying to make this video for you. If you are familiar with Photoshop, some of this will probably be kind of repetitive. If you're not, don't be intimidated by it. I'll post some links to some really useful tutorial videos later that will show you how I use all these tools. So this is what we're going for here. This is a finished edit that I made of a picture of myself as Bill from Gravity Falls. So this is kind of the end result that we want, and the photo that I'm going to edit is this one. So this is just straight out of my phone. I took this with my phone in my living room late at night. You can see I look a little bit more human and a lot more tired. So anyway, about halfway through I'll show you guys how to do the sort of a smoky flame effect, and in the beginning I'll just work on the background and retouching my face. So since this is for Instagram, I'm going to go ahead and make this a square. It's not necessary to do that, but I kind of like to just go ahead and crop my work before I get started. You can always wait until you're about to upload something before you decide exactly what dimensions you want it to be, but I prefer to do this first. Okay, so now I have a square. I like that composition, so I'm just going to go with it. Unlock my background layer, and I'm going to duplicate this layer just in case. This is kind of a backup in case I really mess something up, and I want to save a copy of the background just in case. So with camera phone photos, something that I notice all the time is that the values in it are kind of muddy. It looks kind of gray. I mean, it's a gray wall, so obviously it looks gray, but there's not a very good range of values yet. So I try to correct for this by going into the levels panel, which is really useful. A lot of phone apps give you a curves adjustments panel, and you can also do that in Photoshop, but this I think is a little bit more effective for making the colors come out better and making things look a little bit more finished. So I'm just going to adjust these sliders until I'm happy with the way the values look. And what I mean here is having enough areas of the photo that are truly dark, that are completely black, enough areas that are really bright, that are completely white, and then enough color in between. And I've found that just doing this alone really makes images look a lot better. So you can see the difference. It just looks a little bit more polished. And that's maybe even too dark, but I'm going to go with it. Okay. And save, as always. So the next thing I'll do, since I'm not replacing the background, I'm not going to mask all this out for now, I'm just going to leave this as is get rid of my smoke alarm. This is a fun part of, apartment living, having weird things that show up in your background. Again, there's lots of great apps that you can get for your phone that will take out obnoxious stuff in the background of your photos. In Photoshop, one tool that I really like to use for this is actually the spot healing brush. Lots of people use this for dark circles, but I actually prefer it for taking stuff out. So let's see if I can just get rid of that thing. Wait a second. Yep, now it's gone. Hooray! Okay. So moving on, now I am going to touch up my face a little bit. I will say, I almost always touch up my face in photos that I posted myself. I try to never do anything in Photoshop that can't be done with makeup. It's a really, really awkward, awful thing to have these super Photoshop pictures of yourself, and then when people meet you in real life, they don't even recognize you because you don't look like your own photos. So I recommend, if you're wondering about whether or not to make an edit, ask yourself, if you could do it with makeup, go for it. If you would need plastic surgery, maybe don't do that. So that means what I'm going to do right now is a little sort of airbrushing technique that I like to use. So you can see, it's like, I think I'm kind of old for a cosplayer. I guess that's up for debate. I definitely see it in my face. I almost always take out dark circles. So what I'm going to do to start is choose a color that's similar to the area that I want to paint. So I'm using my color selection tool and find that sort of light pink color. And then go into my brushes panel and choose a small brush, a very, very soft brush, relatively small, maybe a little bit bigger than that. Okay, that's pretty good. And then take the opacity down to about, right about 20%. This gives me sort of like a soft airbrush that I can use to make my face look better. So I'm going to work on a new layer, create a new layer, and then just very, very lightly brush out that area. Okay, so that's not too obtrusive. Actually, I'm not really pleased with how that looks, so I want a different color. So try that again. Let's see. So I want Bill to look like a demon, but I don't actually want him to look dead. So what I'm doing is literally painting over my face, just a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing here for the line by my nose. Again, you don't have to do this. There's also plenty of apps that will do this for you. Meitu is a really good one. A lot of people like their Beauty Cam app. That's the one I want. There we go. Okay. Take that down just a little bit. So, you know, you could have debates all day about whether it's the right thing to do to retouch your photos. I don't really care. I'm going to continue to do it just because I think it's subtle enough that I'm trying to make basically a piece of artwork for Instagram. I don't need it to be 100% realistic and accurate to me. So that. And I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go ahead and merge that layer down. So that's a part of my new working background. Okay. So while I'm working on my face, I can see a little bit of my wig cap showing through here. That's not so great. I am actually going to reconstruct that hair. We'll see if this works. Every so often, I'll have a funky wig problem that doesn't quite do what I want it to do, and I'll have to recreate or repaint hair. Sometimes, like if you're trying to replace a background on something, and you have a lot of stray hairs, it's useful to actually go back and paint them in. But that's a topic for another video, for another time. Alright, so that's way too thick. So going in with a tiny, tiny little hard brush, I'm just going to try to paint in some strokes on a new layer for sure, and sort of get rid of the effect of that. And that's not awesome. This is not a technique I'm super practiced with, but something you probably should know is that if you ever see an edit that I've posted, it is a cross between a photo and a digital painting. And again, I try not to be deceptive or duplicitous with how I edit my face, but I am trying to make basically a piece of artwork. So that's where that mentality comes from. So I'll use a slightly, try to find a slightly lighter shade of that black hair. Soften it up. Okay, so that's not amazing, but it's good enough for me. Where the hell is my brush? There's a tiny little cursor and I can't find it. Okay. And I'm going to go back in with a slightly larger, soft brush, make this a little bit less dark, and also let my brush size change depending on the pressure that I'm using, just to soften it up a little bit. So that's very subtle, but I'm pleased with that. Okay, so I'm going to save it, and then just smooth it all out, and go back in, find that sort of grayish tone from the wig, and just very lightly take my soft brush, make it, it's too big. It's still too big. That's better. Turn the opacity way down to just kind of smooth that area out. Okay, so now the wig looks a little bit better and it's consistent with where the highlights are on the wig. Great. Alright. So that's not a ton of editing. That's pretty good, I think. One other thing that I'm going to do to my face, and again, you can get into some real trouble with this. It's easy to go way overboard on these tools, and when you see people's edits, some things that are the most obvious are actually these tools gone wrong. But the dodge and the burn tool are really useful. I also use these on backgrounds. Again, people tend to use them for faces and details on clothing, but they're also super useful for making backgrounds darker, but I'll get into that later. So the burn tool, really, really useful, makes dark values darker. I have this set to only affect midtones and to have a 15% exposure, so it won't be a super strong effect. So for any cosplay character that I do, I always have to try to make my face look a lot more masculine, and one way I do that is I tend to add a lot of dark eyeshadow around my eye sockets. So I'm going to use this burn tool to reinforce that even more, to try to make the wrong layer. Wow. Okay. There we go. Okay. I'm going to try to make this area underneath my eye darker to sort of bring out my brow bone. I'm going to turn this down a little bit more, and also do this. I'm not sure about that. That's a little weird. I'm going to keep it along the side of my nose. and along the side of my jaw. So basically, your dodge and burn tools, for lack of a better word, are sort of like your contour and highlight in Photoshop. They make dark things darker and bright things brighter. And again, it is easy to go way too far with these and get them on. But I do find them useful for cosplay, for making myself look a little bit sharper. There we go. Perfect. Burn this wig down too to try to make that look better. There we go. Okay, so I think that's pretty much good for edits on my face. I don't really feel a need to do much more than that, so I'm going to move on now to the really fun part, to doing the flames. And this will take a while and will probably be fraught with mistakes, so I'll just bear with me. So I have a set of smoke brushes that I use all the time for edits, really for all kinds of projects. They're really, really useful. You can see I have like every brush I've ever used loaded up here because I'm too lazy to clean out my palette. But I downloaded these for free. If you search for Photoshop smoke brushes or Photoshop ink brushes or texture brushes, you can find a lot of good brushes available for free to download. Make sure it's from a reputable site that's not going to fill your computer with viruses. Unfortunately, I don't remember which site I got these from, but they're a really nice brush pack. So these almost function like rubber stamps, or almost like little transparent images that are already imported into Photoshop. So I want to get a sort of glowy smoke effect for Bill's hand. So you can see here the outline of the cursor. It's really, it's kind of unique, and it shows you the size of it and what the shape is going to be. So I like this shape. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, make this like 750. Okay. And right now, oh, that's still on the burn tool. Okay, let me find that brush again. If I wanted to burn something in that shape, I could do that. Where is it? They're so tiny and hard to see. I'm just going to leave this in the video to show that, you know, I'm prone to human error and I'm going to do everything right the first time. Well, crap. Alright, this one is also good, so I'm just going to use this one too. The nice thing about these is that they're very organic. They're very weird, interesting shapes, and I like to add a lot of texture to my photos, just like I like to have a good range of values. I also like to have an interesting range of textures as much as I can. So these brushes are really good for doing that. So for this, I'm going to set the opacity to 100% so that it acts like a stamp, and I can see the exact shape that I want of the brush on the layer that I'm working on. Right now I have it set to white, do a light blue for Bill, and we'll also change this up later. Okay. It's not quite the size I want. A little bit bigger. Okay. So here's one stamp. Oh, that's kind of cool. I can find another shape to sort of complement that. That one's sort of interesting. Let's see what happens with that. It's a little bit bigger. It's also kind of nice. Okay. Like that. And maybe just for good measure, I'll do one more little effect. Yeah, I'll do that one. Okay. So again, this makes it so easy. And you've probably seen other things like Warble and various other apps and stuff that people use. Oh, it looks like my hand is on fire. I actually really like that. To do glowy smoke and that kind of stuff. And that's great, but if you want to do it all in one place, which I find easier, let's Photoshop. Okay. One more. Okay, well that already looks pretty good. I could stop there, but I don't want to stop there because I'm feeling extra, so let me get a cursor I can use. Blah. Okay. I'm going to leave that on its own layer for now. Since it's a little bit weird to have a source of blue light that's like that, that's not affecting anything else in the image, I'm actually going to add a little bit more blue light. Make this a little bit lighter. Go back into my brushes and use a really soft brush like I had before, but much larger. So do, yeah, about like that. And then take the opacity really low again. This is just to add sort of a glow. So I'm going to do this soft brush behind all that, and that makes it, I think, look a little bit more like flames. Later I'll add some more blue light that'll affect my face and the background more, so to make it just a little bit more realistic, even though this is a completely unrealistic thing. So I'm pleased with that. I'm going to add another layer. This time I'm going to take a lighter shade of blue, try to give this a little bit of depth. Go back to my smoke brushes and find a shape that I like. Yeah, that's cool, that'll do. And add this in white. Ah, that's not what I want. It needs to be at 100% opacity. So even if I set my brushes to be at 100% opacity, I can always change how opaque this layer is. I can fiddle around with that to give it the right effect that I want. For now, just so I can see the shape and composition of everything, I'm leaving it at 100%. So this, stamp that on there. Okay, kind of like that. And that's pretty. Okay. Not way too big. I'm sure some of you who are experienced Photoshop users, if you're seeing this, are like cringing at some of the shortcuts that I don't have set up. But anyway, okay, so that's a lot of really fancy, elaborate smoke. I'm happy with it. For this, you don't really need the white layer, but it gives it a little bit more depth, I think, which I kind of like, and it's pretty. So I'm going to experiment around a little bit and see if I can make this look a little bit more organic. So blending modes for layers are something that I experiment with a lot, and you basically are changing how you want your layer to interact with everything underneath it. Oh, that's neat. I'll have to remember that for a future thing. So there are lots of different ways to do this. I use these all the time. I think I'm going to go with a, let's see, what I want. Go with a color dodge layer. So it's not exactly transparent. It is sort of, interacting a little bit more with some of the stuff behind it. It just makes it slightly more interesting. Okay, so that's, I like how that looks. I could change the blending mode for this. Yeah, that's good. Let's keep that on. So now my problem is that I can't really see my hand. So what I want to do is create a mask. I'm going to make this transparent for now and just work on this first layer. So masks are ultra versatile. If you are still learning how to use masks, keep going because they will make your life so much easier. You'll never have to erase a single pixel again. And I think you'll be very grateful for them. So I don't need this to be super precise. I'm going to work with a soft brush. That's a pretty good size. Make this a little bit less opaque. So basically what I'm doing is I'm telling Photoshop that I want to cover up certain parts of this layer, but keep them accessible. Not get rid of them, just cover them up for now. So I have this extra mask here. I'm going in, and the general rule for masks is that black conceals and white reveals. So I'm trying to give the illusion of depth. This is coming from inside of my palm. And maybe there's some smoke and stuff outside of it. But I'm just going to mask out this part of my hand. This is also the way I replace backgrounds too, for those of you who are interested in that. And so again, now that my hand appears to be in front of this, it gives just a little bit more depth. So that claw. Make this a little bit smaller. The tip of that claw. And I think that's close enough. Okay, so let's see how that looks with just a mask applied to that layer. Zoom out. That's already pretty good. I'm not really crazy about that glow there. Not really crazy about that. So let's see what happens if I try to apply this mask to that second glowy layer. I'll duplicate this layer. Ah, that's not what I want. Fun fact, the duplicate layer and delete layer options are right next to each other in that menu, and that is, I'm glad it asks you whether that's what you want to do. Okay, duplicate that layer. I don't need this extra layer, so select everything and get rid of it. And then what I want to do is take this mask and apply it to layer 2. So now I can see all the spots that I missed when I did that original mask that I didn't need it. So I'm going to keep that glowy effect behind my hand and just finish painting out this mask. Give myself a better brush here. And let's see what I'm doing. Alright, I'm going to keep a little bit of it around the edges of my fingers because that's what light does naturally. It kind of wraps around things. If I want to, if I don't like the mask, I can erase. I can also go back in with white later, and I can say, you know, actually I do want to keep some of that glow effect. Let me put that back. Small brush here. And the lighter opacity. Okay, so now I can say, you know what, I don't want to cover up that much of that glare light. I'm going to put a little bit back around the edges of my fingers because that looks a little bit more natural. There we go. Okay, so that's much better. So now let's see what that third layer looks like. It's okay. It's doing some kind of weird stuff. This one I'm just going to do a separate mask for because there's not that much on those things. So I'll have it look like the whole flame is coming from the inside of my hand, and hopefully the white part of it still gives it some depth. It's not big enough. If you've watched tutorials where people get everything right the first time, tell those people I'm proud of them. So more practice than me. So I think I'm going to leave the tip of my claw covered like that because it's sort of, it kind of looks like that whitish part is behind this finger but in front of this one, so it's like it's curling around my fingers, and I like that effect, so I'm going to keep it. Alright. Cool. Okay, so now I have more glowing smoke. One thing that I think is a little bit strange is that supposedly I have all this blue light up here in the corner. Well, that's cool, but there's only ambient yellow light and white light for my ring light in the rest of the photo, so that looks a little bit strange. This is why we added that blue glow, and now what I'm going to do, and this will take a few tries probably, is add a color gradient to sort of change the light in the composition. This is something that I do all the time, by the way. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed it, but I do it constantly. So get back into our blue, take sort of a medium blue, and use the gradient tool on a new layer. So this layer is underneath the flames, but above the background with me in it. So I have it set to go from my foreground color, our light blue, to transparent, which means I can do something like this. Okay, so that on its own, it's kind of cool, but it's not exactly what I want. So let me see with the blending modes what else I can make it do. I want to try to make it look like the flame in my hand is actually casting some blue light on my face. So go with overlay, that's a little bit better. Take it down to about 50%. Okay, so that, you can always toggle this off and on. That I like better because it's sort of filling the space with some blue light, and I think it's much more realistic. So again, depending on if you're trying to replace backgrounds, depending on what sort of colors are in your costume and the ambient light around you, you can use these color gradients and the different blending modes to try to merge things together to make them look a little bit more realistic. So to do that, you have to think again, what are your light sources? In this image, I have 3 light sources. I have 2 real ones, the yellow behind me, white in front of me, and then this artificial blue that I've added. So I'm trying to accommodate that a little bit. Yeah, so I like that much better. It's going to be a little bit strong. So it gives a little bit of a blue cast on my face. And keep in mind, you know, some of the edits that you made earlier, when you start adding that extra light layer, they might change. Like I can see a little bit of the darkness under my eye again, but I'm just going to leave it because, you know, it's there. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to make a few more changes to my background. I'm going to make a new layer above the background and basically do my same little airbrushing technique to paint over the parts of my light fixture. This is an amazing light fixture, by the way. It was not cheap at all, but it's called the Nanoleaf Aurora, and you can set it to change colors and do all kinds of amazing things. And I love it for cosplay because it adds really interesting light to my photos. So I'm just going to paint over this. Again, sometimes, you know, for some photos that geometric aspect is really cool and it looks really good, but not for every single photo I ever want to do. And I can clean this up later. In fact, I'm just going to paint kind of willy-nilly on this and go back and mask out the parts of it I don't want. So yeah, if there are things in your background that you don't like, you can mask them out, you can paint them out. I always do. I try to get rid of door frames and carpet and all that kind of stuff, and router and everything. You don't want to clean your home. There's always Photoshop. Okay, so that's a little bit strange looking. I'm going to use the least agreeable tool in this entire program, polygonal lasso tool. I hate it with a vengeance, but it's very useful. And make a triangular selection. I'm going to make a trapezoid. I lied. Okay. Eventually that will make a selection when my computer quits buzzing at me. So, there we go. Okay. I'm going to make a mask. I'm going to cut out some of the messy painting that I did. Move that mask. So I want to have a nice, just didn't work at all, did it? No, I think you understand what I'm trying to do. Okay. Alright, so that covers up some of the parts of the light fixture behind me. Now, let's clean that up a little bit. That's not great. One more layer. Go in, take a slightly lighter version of this yellow brush. Take this down to that. It's maybe too soft. And what I want to do is try to recreate some of the glow that I just took out. It's a little bit bigger, not too opaque, and let's see if I can go back in. Oh, that looks awful. No, it's not awful, it's just not what I want. Okay. Okay, so that's an ultra messy painting. I'm gonna take the opacity on that down. Change the blending mode on it. Let's see what happens if I make this a colored dodge. That's a great screen. Overlays a little bit better. Okay, that's not really perfect. I can still see some kind of wonky things, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to leave it. So, alright, so now this is almost done. I'm pretty pleased with this. I think the last thing I'm going to try to do is see if I want to make the rest of this background a little bit darker. So I'm going to get back into my background, get back into the burn tool, which I set to the wrong thing. Use a very soft brush, a large soft brush, it's maybe too large, that's much better. Set my effect to shadows, so this will only affect shadows, and then make the exposure much higher, make it like 30%. So it's really unusual in Photoshop that you would ever need to use the burn tool on someone's face or clothing at an exposure this high. You almost never want to go above 15 or 17%. But if you're like me and you stay up way too late taking images of yourself in your apartment and you're tired of your gray walls, you can use the dodge tool, set it a really, really high setting to sort of blacken out areas around you. And this is a little bit different than using, say, just a brush because it leaves areas alone. For instance, it's not affecting that glowy part. Actually, that's much better. So again, all this flame stuff, this is on layers that are not affected by this brush, so I can sort of burn out some of the space behind me. I'll leave a little bit of that blue light because it would illuminate the space behind me. But as for what's beneath, oh, there we go. Okay, so this is really dark. I maybe didn't need to make the background this dark, but I kind of like it. I said I was done. I lied. I completely lied. I'm going to use the dodge tool again. Again, for most things, you don't want to set the exposure that high. The dodge tool is the burn tool's cousin, makes things brighter. Set this to mid-tones, and a much larger thing. I want to make my sweatshirt a little bit brighter. Make it a brighter yellow. So let's see what happens if I dodge out the mid-tones of my sweatshirt. There we go. And again, that's leaving the shadows alone. Okay, so we're almost done. I dodged out the yellow color in my sweatshirt. I really like it. So there's a little triangulation going on. I can actually brighten up that thing behind me. Ooh, that looks much better. And again, because this is the dodge tool, it's only affecting mid-tones. I can set it to highlights to see what that did for me. Makes it really glowy. Maybe too glowy, I don't know about that. That's a little bit too much. Take that back. Okay, but I'm happy with that. I also, if I want to, can use the dodge tool on my face a little bit to bring out my cheekbones. I burned out the hollows in my cheeks before. Ooh, that's way too strong. Again, I am constantly having to check whether things work. In fact, for a long time, my handle was Commander Z because I hit Command Z all day, every day. Okay, so I'm just going to bring out those points of my face. It was even a little bit too much for me. I'm not going to sit and do it on my keyboard's not cooperating. Okay. Well, there we go. Okay, I'm just going to remove this like that. That's stark enough. So one thing that I often do is I'll punch up the color of color contacts. There's a lot of different ways that you can change your eye color in Photoshop and various editing apps, but I usually either just use brushes. You can even see like the hole in the middle of the contact. That's kind of crazy. So, but with the dodge tool, I set to mid-tones. It's a little yellow. I think this one might look lighter. Oh, that's still interesting. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to keep that. Okay, so I think I'm going to consider that a finished edit. And what I like about this is that, again, it's got a dark background that I like to have. I tend to like my cosplay photos to remind me a little bit of roller coasters, to be completely honest, to have lots of dark values, lots of super bright saturated hues on top of them. So I've got a couple different colors going on with the contrast between the yellow and the blue. I've got some interesting different shapes going on. I feel like it's, you know, pretty decent compositionally. There's stuff happening, sort of a diagonal across it. So I'm going to consider that done. Finally, save this. There's also, if you're not familiar with this, a really useful thing in Photoshop is to save your work for web. This will save, I have this saved as a Photoshop file right now for saving it on my phone or for Instagram, so it doesn't slow my phone down and take up too much space. I'm going to save it for web, and this will automatically save it to be 72 dots per inch. It maintains a lot of high quality, but it just creates a smaller file. So you can see there's different qualities I can save it at. The original is 12 megabytes. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. So depending on what you need it for, I usually set mine to about 77. That's plenty high quality with a small enough file. Okay, do that. Save this. And there we go, and we're done. So thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please consider finding me on Instagram if you don't already follow me on there. I try to post stuff every day, or at least several times a week. And if you have feedback for me, please leave it in the comments. This is my first video. I usually never make these, so yeah, any feedback and suggestions you guys have, I'd be happy to hear. Thanks so much.